Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Welcome. Hello. Welcome to our second webinar where we will talk all things experience AI and AI quests. I'm very excited for specifically this webinar because we will be talking about real world research that is going on in the research labs at Google. And if you know me, I love anything that has real world application. So my name is Rehana and I'm a learning manager on the Experience AI team. Together with my team members, I write lots of the resources that are part of Experience AI. I'm also joined by the marvelous Liat from Google Research as well. And Liat, who will also be my co-host today, has an incredible career so far, an incredible background, working on some pretty well-known, interesting, and cool projects. So Liat, please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Liat, and I am a program manager on Google Research. I've been with Google for quite some time, all around the world, sometimes in London, in San Francisco. And I think my claim for fame, if you will, that Rihanna is referring to, is when I led the Doodles team. So remember Google Doodles? I mean, they were a big thing when everyone was on the Google homepage. Now, when you search on Chrome, maybe you see them less, but that's the logo, the Google logo that changes into fun and interesting and engaging and educational topics, whether it's animations or games. They can be interactive, they can be static. I'm sure you know them. So I drove that for a while globally from San Francisco, and that was really, really fun.
What is your favorite doodle, Liat? Because I know all of them and I have seen all of them. I'm a huge fan.
Thank you. Well, it's hard to choose. I think one of my all-time favorites is the one that we created for International Women's Day, where we went out to a bunch of countries around the world and asked women what they want to do in the world. And we animated their answers into the doodle, so you could see real people in the doodle, everyday people in this case, and then their dreams. And that was really cool. And I did notice that we have a all-female crew today in this webinar, so that's also a celebration of that. And then I can also, I have to also mention the doodles that we did for World Cup. We actually went to Brazil for World Cup. I think it was 2014, if I'm not mistaken, or 2016, something like that. And we doodled live everything that's happened. So if there was like a crazy goal, or if someone threw something into the field, we just drew it live. And that was a super interesting and cool experience.
Wow. I might have even seen those doodles and seen them live as well. So this is super, super, super cool. Thank you, Liat.
Thank you. How about you?
Well, I was a coding instructor for a number of years, and I really enjoyed that because I constantly was finding new ways to teach computer science through physical computing, through creative computing, and musical technologies. But my favorite project that I worked on was building robots from cereal boxes and vegetables and Legos, and I had a lot of fun doing that.
That's so cool. What's the coolest robot?
Well, we had this workshop called Potato Wars where we made robots out of vegetables, and then we had them compete against each other in this taped-off ring. And pro tip: if you ever find yourself in a situation where you have to make a robot out of vegetables, potatoes make terrible wheels. They get salty and they fall off. So don't do it. Use carrots and parsnips instead. Well, Liat, I'm very happy that we both have had such incredible careers so far that brought us so much joy and continue to bring us so much joy as well. Like Liat mentioned, we're also joined by two incredible researchers from the Google Research team, who we will bring in on the stage in a bit so that they can tell us a little bit more about their research and about their research around flood forecasting and forecasting floods. And how that is helping communities all over the world. So we will bring them on in just a second. But we will be, this is part of a webinar series. And in the first one, which we already presented and is already released and on YouTube, was about introducing AI Quest and Experience AI and how AI Quest fits into Experience AI. We were then joined by researchers from the Graduate School of Education at Stanford, who explained the pedagogy behind AI Quest and how it's designed to make you inquisitive about the concepts that you're interacting with when exploring the game. We are now here, so the second webinar, where the main focus is to show you how the concepts that you learn in class when you're interacting with the AI Quest are being applied to the world's most important problems and how AI is used to help solve these big problems around flood forecasting. We also have more webinars coming up as more AI Quest get developed. So keep an eye on our socials for any new releases.
And if you missed webinar 1, you can always find it on YouTube.
Yes. And we had so much fun recording that one too. So in this webinar, I'm going to tell you what it means to be part of the Experience AI community. We have a huge community, and we have a lot of resources that we have out there to help you and educators and young people all over the world become equipped with AI literacy skills. Liat will then take over to talk about AI quests. And after that, she will give it over to Debbie and Gila, who will share the real-world research that they are working on and that is being used on AI quests. Then Liat will give us a demo of AI Quest, which I'm very excited about. And then finally, there will be a Q&A from students who are involved in the pilot. Let's first start off by looking at what Experience AI is, because that's what I work on and I love what I'm working on. And so Experience AI is an initiative that we developed with researchers at Google DeepMind and Google. And it's an educational program developed for educators and young people from the age of 11 to 14. We provide the resources for all of you to better understand what AI is and what machine learning is. The goal is to make these complex concepts accessible and to inspire all of you all over the world, not just how to use AI, but also to understand these technologies properly so that you are empowered with the skills to tackle the problems of the future that we will be facing in this world. We have built a huge community of around 2 million students and young people and educators all over the world who have used our Experience AI resources. And for me personally, it has been an absolute gift being part of this lovely community with all of you. Students in Romania, Malaysia, and the UK, they all highlight how the Experience AI resources have made them more aware of the AI technologies around them, but also more aware of how their data is collected and how they feel empowered that they can now develop their own machine learning models. A part of our approach in developing the Experience AI resources is to make everything AI related relevant to you and also all the young people all over the world. And one way we do this is by bringing real AI research into your hands through our lessons, through the videos, and through the activities that we have in the lessons, like AI Quest. And we do that because it's very important that you can see how the concepts that you learn in class are being applied in the world's most important problems. We also want to showcase the need for researchers with diverse skill sets and backgrounds so that when you are making those career choices, you feel inspired. So how do we do this? How do we inspire all of you all over the world? We do this by bringing in actual researchers who are working on cutting edge problems and projects in the field of robotics, in the field of machine learning. And they are in our videos, in our lessons, they are the ones explaining the key concepts to all of you. We're always looking for more opportunities to connect real world research to education. And one way we do this is by partnering with organizations like Google Research, like with you, Liat, who have created an incredible game called AI Quests. And it's an opportunity to bring, an AI Quest is an opportunity to bring that real research into your hands. So Liat, I would love for you to tell us a little bit more about AI Quests.
Thank you. First of all, We're so humbled to be collaborating with Raspberry Pi Foundation and Experience AI, and I gotta give it up for them. They just won the UNESCO ICT in Education. It's a very, very prestigious prize. So we're so proud to be working with you guys, and thank you so much for the partnership. So I want to tell you a little bit about Google Research before we dive into AI quests. Let's go to the next slide, please. Even one more. Thank you. And one more. So Google Research is a multinational research organization that is driven by big questions. We're curious people who wake up in the morning asking questions about how we can benefit the lives and livelihood of millions of people around the world through the research that we do. And we have teams around the world focused on topics like how can we provide early warning for natural disasters, which we'll talk about a little bit more today, or other team looking into health issues, for example, how we can help early diagnosis of diseases with AI, or other team looking into discovering biological mechanisms like our brain. And these are all maybe just little hints on our next quest coming up in the next few months too. And we try to use the research around our AI to really help illuminate some of those big questions and how we can support and make the world better with some of our answers. In the next slide, as an organization in the forefront of innovation in AI, we also feel very committed to addressing the topic of AI literacy. And for many years, we've been engaging students and educators around the world because we know that it's really important not just to know how to use the products and tools that are driven by AI, but also understand the inner working and foundational concepts of AI so that students can be critical thinkers and they can have a deeper understanding of this technology and how they can benefit in the future that's going to be more and more driven by AI. And if we look at the news around the world, that was still in the last slide, we see that many countries around the world understand the need for AI literacy. And in this kind of new school year right now, there's a lot of headlines about how important it is. And so we asked ourselves, next slide, how we as Google Research, as a research organization using AI, can really benefit that work, and what we could provide that is complementary to some amazing programs such as Experience AI and other programs that are already teaching AI in the classroom. And our answer was, hey, we can use the actual work that we do in research in the real world and translate it to students. And the next slide is telling you a little bit more about AI quests. So what is it? It's a gamified experience. It's actually a set of quests where students discover firsthand how AI is used in the real world to create positive impact. And here are 5 things you should know about AI quests. First of all, as we said, it's based on real world and real impact driven by Google Research Program. And we take those real world projects and translate them into something that's engaging and understandable for teams. They also follow the AI lifecycle that some of you may know from the Experience AI program. So they guide students through, understanding the problem, training the model, and so on. We'll go through that in a little bit more detail later. It's designed for classroom use. So we created it with classroom in mind, although it could be used also at home. And it's there to really complement the curriculum by Experience AI and others. It's grounded in the learning sciences. So we partnered with the AI Accelerator for Learning to create AI quests. They were on the previous webinar, and if you haven't watched that, I again really recommend. And they really grounded our work in those best practices of how to bring these things into the classroom. And what's next for us? So the first quest is launched in English for back to school this year, and 2 more quests are on the way and will be released in the coming month, with additional languages available starting in early 2026. Let's go on to the next slide and give you a glimpse of AI Quest with our intro video. You'll see.
Welcome to AI Quests. My name is Professor Sky, an AI expert and your mentor throughout this learning experience. We've been waiting for someone like you. You're about to begin a journey through our world. As you travel, you'll meet different inhabitants and learn about the challenges in their communities. Your mission is to help them by applying powerful AI responsibly to their problems. Each quest will teach you about a real-life AI research project that's making an impact back on Earth. The AI technology you'll experience is amazing, but it's not magic. Success depends on the decisions you make. You'll need to collect good data, train your AI to make smart choices, and test it to make sure it's reliable. The universe is counting on you. Are you ready?
Cool. So this was our intro video, and you saw Sky, who's our in-game AI mentor, and she introduces students to the game's goal in this video and a little bit of the world of the game. So what's the process behind transforming complex research efforts into interesting, understandable, and engaging quests for kids? So first of all, we choose the topic, and we have so many fascinating Google research projects to choose from. And so we intentionally select ones that give students a diverse perspective on both the impact area, from climate to health to science, and the specific AI technology involved. Next, we partner with the Stanford Accelerator for Learning for Pedagogy and with Phantom Studios for creative development. We work with them to translate the scientific principles of learning into an engaging and effective quest. And then we build every quest with 3 core pillars in mind. Impact narrative, this is the why, what is the real world problem we're solving? Then the AI foundation, the how, what is the technology and the AI at its core? And then the game mechanism, the fun bit, right? What makes it engaging and interactive for kids so that they want to play more and learn more? And once a quest is ready to play, we test it with students through teachers like you. One of them is Dave, who you may have heard from in the last webinar. And thanks so much for your help in testing AI quests. Now, as you already know, this is based on our real research. And before I'm going to hand it over to the researchers behind it, let's watch a bit of a video about flood forecasting in real life. Oh, should we do that later?
When it comes to a flood crisis, advanced warnings make a big difference. Knowing a flood is coming even an hour in advance gives people time to prepare and take action. So imagine if hours became days. AI makes that possible.
In 2018, the Google research team looked into how can we combine Google's AI and technology to help humanity. One of the biggest challenges that humanity needs to overcome are the natural disasters that are becoming more and more frequent due to the climate change. Floods are the most common disaster, affecting about a fifth of the world's population.
The goal of Google's flood forecasting project is to provide accurate and timely flood warnings to as many people in the world as possible. The highest quality flood forecasts are available in places where there are gauges in a river, and it is unfortunate that the geographical distribution is uneven, then places lack these stream flow gauges to provide data. So one of the things that Google is doing is demonstrating the power of AI for solving this problem.
Amazing. I'm very inspired by all of this, and I think these are real world problems that lots of communities all over the world are battling with, and it affects people's livelihood as well. So researchers who are working on flood forecasting, for example, are working on very important problems. And so I'm very, very, very happy to be joined by research scientist and product manager Debbie and Gila, who will tell us more about their research exactly on flood forecasting and how empowering that is. So I'm going to give it over to you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about your research.
Thank you so much. Hi, my name is Gila, and I'm a product manager at Google on the Google Research Floods team. Our research team develops AI models that predict flooding all over the world 5 to 7 days before the flood occurs. So for example, if I look out my window today and see the sun is shining and blue skies, our model can still accurately predict that in 1 week's time, there'll be flooding. And my degree is in computer science, but what I love about the work that I'm doing is that the challenges that we're working on are solving real world problems. Over to you, Debbie.
Thank you, Gila. Hi, everyone. My name is Debbie. I'm a research scientist at Google, and today I lead the flood forecasting team. Before that, I'm actually at Google for the past 9 years, close to 9 years. Before that, I used to work on conversational AI before Gemini was a thing. So I actually worked on let's say, the ancestors of the Gemini model. So Gila told you a little bit about what the team is doing, and today we're going to present more what is the research behind the quest that you've been seeing.
Before we get started with the research side, I want to talk a little bit about why we're focusing on floods. And as you can see here, floods are one of the deadliest and most costly natural disasters in the world. And we actually need early warnings to save lives and property. And there are a couple of reasons that are worth highlighting about why floods are so devastating. So first of all, floods cause massive damage. They destroy homes, schools, and businesses. They wipe out crops, contaminate drinking water, and cut off roads and power. And every year, floods impact millions of people, especially those in vulnerable or low-income communities. So saving lives and reducing this devastation is really a global priority. In addition, in developed areas, concrete, pavement, they can stop the ground from absorbing the water, and that actually can make floods happen faster and hit harder. Debbie, I'll let you walk everyone through how our models work.
Thank you, Gila. Next slide, please. Yes. So today we're going to talk mostly about river and flood forecasting, which is one type of floods where the river actually overflows. At the end, we'll talk a little bit about what other types of floods there are and what we're doing to solve this problem as well. So for river and flood forecasting, which is what the AI quest is based on, the questions that we want to solve are the following. First of all, we want to understand how the river will change depending on the weather conditions and especially on the precipitation. And then we also want to understand where the water, if the river overflows, where the water is actually going to go, because it's really important to understand who you want to warn before a flood. So let's go to the next slide, please. So the question is, why are we using AI to do flood forecasting? And before AI, there was other systems that would predict floods, and they would use this what's called hydrologic model, so understand the water cycle, and they would use a classic physical model. So you would need to understand exactly what happens to a drop of water from it coming down from precipitation to hitting the ground. Some of the water would go to the river, some of the water could be absorbed as groundwater, and then you would have evaporation and so on. So you would need to understand all of these steps and model all of these steps to be able to understand what's going to happen to the river. Now, with AI, the advantage that you have is that, first of all, you can use and combine a lot of data, both a large amount of data, but also data from different sources. And you've seen this in the quest where you're using different types of data all together, and you can combine this all together in an AI model, which is very difficult, if not impossible, to do in classical model. Also, it's really fast to work with AI and to iterate. You can change your model, you can add more data, and then you can repeat and you can improve your model. And you also don't need a PhD in hydrology to do that, right? Because beforehand, you will have to understand all of these phenomena and then build the equations for them. For AI, you don't need to do that. A lot of this is basically done by the model without you having to understand all of what's happening actually physically. And the third advantage, and maybe the most important, is that with AI, we were able to expand our coverage to the entire world, which is something that was not done before with classic physical models, because these models would need data in the locations they are needed to do prediction. And unfortunately, there is no historical data everywhere. And specifically in developing countries and countries with low-income populations and communities that actually need to be protected from floods, these are the countries with less data. So having this power to provide predictions, even in these countries with not a lot of data, was crucial to make this equal globally. So now we'll talk a little bit about the data, and I think I saw a question in the comments about real data. So yes, we're using real data. This is an example of two types of data that we're using. There's more, but I'm showing here on the left hand measurements from a river gauge. So this is stream flow, which is related to the water level in the river. What you see in the x-axis is the time, and then in the y-axis is the actual stream flow. So you see how the level of water changes over time. Sometimes you can see a peak when there is a lot of water in the river. On the right-hand side, you see a satellite image from a radar. So what you actually see here, the darker regions are water. So you can see that there is a river, and you can also see that it's overflowing, because you can see around the river areas that are darker that are actually inundated. So what we do with this data is that it's not perfect, and we have to do some processing beforehand, and this is also something you did on the quest. So if we come back for a second to the previous slide, you see that in the middle, in the gauge measurements, something weird happened. The kind of baseline kind of changed, and this is one of the things that could happen, because this is actual data from physical sensors in the river, and sometimes they have issues. Sometimes some of the measurements are not okay. The sensor can break. You can see that there are gaps. There are some years with no data because the sensor broke. And then something happened when they put a new sensor, and the baseline level was not the same, and so on. So these are things that we need to fix to help the AI model. We're not fixing everything, but the more we fix, the better the model will be. But models are able to kind of cope with some of these error that we call noise. So we can go back to the next slide, and you can see that this is a fix that we did for this gauge. And on the right-hand side, you see that what we do is that we process the satellite image to identify the water, and we have a model that actually classifies each pixel in the image and says whether it's a wet pixel or a dry pixel, so that we know what are the areas that are inundated. So this is a little bit about the data that we use. Now we can move on to the actual model. So the model that we use, I won't go into the details here, but the model that we use is called an LSTM, which is short for long short-term memory. It's a type of neural network. And what's specific about this is that it repeats itself. So we have one unit that repeats itself over time, and we use this unit to process our data, which is sequential. So each of these units will process 1 day of data. So we use 1 day of weather data, including precipitation, temperature, and so on. And one unit will process this data and then output what it thinks happens in the river for that day. And then the results also go to the next unit for the next day, because obviously what happens in the river also depends on what happened yesterday. So you need to know what's the condition in the river up till now to understand what, for example, if we have more precipitation, what's going to happen. So this is this kind of model. What is in the unit is basically implementing a complex mathematical function, but you don't need to understand it to run the model. So fun fact, this is, remember I told you I worked on conversational AI before Gemini. This is actually the same model that we were using for that, because when you work on conversation, you need to process text. And text is also a sequential type of data, and we would use this unit to process word by word. So today the models are more complex. We're not using LSTM anymore. We're using models that are based on what's called transformers. But this is basically the ancestor of the current chatbot models and large language models. So that's one thing that's funny with AI, is that you could reuse different models in different areas. Next slide, please. So we have our data, we built a model. Now the model has prediction, and the question is our model good or not? And this is also something that you're going to play with in the quest. And I'll tell you two things that we do for testing the model. So the first thing is, in location where you do have historical data, what you could do is simply to compare the prediction of the model with the actual measurement that you have. So you just want to understand how close the model prediction is to what actually happened historically. So this is what you see here. You see a graph that's called the hydrograph. This is the same thing that we saw in the previous slides, when we have the stream flow, the water level over time. The orange one is the actual measurement. So these are actual measurements in a specific gauge. And then in blue, you see the model prediction. So you see that it's not perfect. It's not exactly one-to-one, obviously, but it seems that it's very close. And what's important is that when I see a peak in the orange one or in the blue one, I see a peak in the second one, because this is what I want to identify, where the water kind of tends to overflow. So this is one way to test the model, to see how close it is to the historical data when we have it. And when we don't have historical data, what we could do is the second thing in the next slide, is that we could use the satellite images that I showed before, and we can see whether what the model is predicting actually fits what's happening in the real world. So what you see here is on the left hand, you see an image of the Five River in Guinea. So you see there is just the river, there is no inundation. And 1 month later, you see the exact same area, but you now see the darker regions are the water. So you now see that there is inundation happening. Now, if we look at our model in the bottom, our model is the blue one. So you can see that if we look at the same dates, and you can see this with the arrows. So when there is no water on the ground from the satellite image, you see that the blue curve is very low. So you see that we were not predicting a lot of water in the river. And now on the second one, on the right pan, you now see that there is a peak in the blue one that really correlates with what's happening on the ground. So we are predicting, the model is predicting that there is a lot of water in the river, and actually we see inundation on the ground. So we see that it's very correlated well with what's happening on the ground. So that's another way to actually validate the model and understand that it's performing well. And handing over to Gila to tell us a little bit who is using that and why it's important.
Thank you, Debbie. So that's a big question, right? So we have these amazing models and we have these fantastic capabilities, but who is this actually helpful for? So as I mentioned earlier, early warning systems are a great way to get accurate, life-saving information to people fast. But who are those people? And so really the first one that we're calling out are individuals and families. And these are really the most important people. If I'm located in a place where there's flooding and AI systems can send alerts directly to my phone via Google Search, Maps, or other apps, they could tell me if I'm at risk. And that means that I can take action. For example, I could get myself, my family, my pets to safety before roads become impassable. I could also protect my valuables and maybe move my electronics or furniture to higher floors in my house. So that's a great help that just can be possible for individuals. The next group that we help are first responders and authorities. If you can imagine, local officials, police, fire departments, it's really important for them to have detailed flood maps to plan evacuation routes, stage emergency supplies, and know which bridges and roads to close so that they can get people to safety as quickly as possible. The next group that we are focusing on are farmers and businesses. So if you can imagine, farmers can harvest crops early if they know in advance that floods are coming, or they can move their livestock to higher grounds, while businesses can move expensive equipment to higher floors or protect valuable inventory. And that's actually who you're helping when you play the AI quest. It's specifically the businesses and figuring out where to put their stalls in the safest places. And the last group is really aid organizations. Now, aid organizations are really important partners. They can help act before the disaster hits by putting food, medical teams, and shelter supplies in safe zones, which they can tell when they have a better understanding of where the floods are likely to be. This activity is called anticipatory action. And some of the AIDS organizations that we've worked with have shown is that providing emergency funds in advance of a flood disaster can actually be much more valuable than providing funds after the disaster has already hit. So if you receive $100 before a flood, you could use that money to better prepare, to set up various shelters, to maybe buy a boat, to move your stuff to a higher floor. Whereas if you receive $100 after a flood, it's likely that the impact that's already been had is more than the $100 can necessarily help with. And what this gives us is just a much better understanding of how AI technology can help transform a sudden catastrophic event into a more manageable crisis by giving people the power to act. So I think the other thing to really point out is what's next. What Debbie talked about previously was the work that we've already done with our models on riverine floods. But there's another type of flood that's really important, which is flash floods. That's floods that occur from a high degree of rainfall in a very short amount of time. And our model is not yet as good as we want it to be in predicting that. So we're also working on that within the research team as a next step. Also, what we found, and this is really fascinating, the flip side of floods is actually droughts. When you think about there being too much water and you're looking at a model to actually see where the water is and when, something that becomes very clear is that understanding where the water isn't is also a really interesting and important capability. And so we're also focusing on droughts and seeing how our models can predict droughts well in advance. And in this case, actually months in advance, not just days in advance, which is very important for farmers, especially when they're planting crops. And then lastly, what's next is news. What we found is that when we're training our models, what's really important to understand is what ground truth looks like. What our models predict is only as good as how well it relates to what's really happening on the ground. And so what we've started doing is essentially compiling an understanding of where are there events happening all over the world, and then how does our understanding and our knowledge of those events, based on the information that we can pull from news data sources, how does that actually help train our models and make our models better by giving us a really accurate ground truth about what's happening in the world?
Amazing. Thank you so much. This is so inspiring. And I can't believe how incredible the work you're doing for communities all over the world, and helping everyone around the world, not just with the flooding forecasting, but now also with news and drought forecasting. I'm going to give it over to Liat. to go over how all of this research, basically how we all use this research into AI Quest, which I think is incredible at this point.
Yeah, thanks so much. It was lovely hearing from you, Debbie and Gila, about the real world research. And we heard all of these stories and all of this kind of process when we just built AI Quest. And that's how we built it, right? We listened to the team. We had a lot of discussions with the team to kind of hear what their life cycle is and try to see how we can translate it in a way that's engaging for teens. And this is what we have for flood forecasting. This is what the quest looks like. We actually build each of our quests in the same way, again, following the same life cycle that you know from Experience AI and following really what the real world research is doing. So here you can see on the top left, when we start the flood forecasting quest, we have Luna, our teachable agent, really explaining the problem, and we get students to understand the problem. That's really the first step that the researchers do in real life. Before they start, trying to come up with solutions, they need to understand the problem. Then they go on to data collection. So they search the forest for any data tokens that are relevant for floods. In the next step, they prepare the data. In this case, they clean the data from some errors or missing data that would affect their model. After that, students would train the model and basically choose which of those data tokens that they already collected are most relevant and would give them the most accuracy for their model. Then they go on and test the model and see how it would do if it would to predict floods that already happened, and they know what happened within these floods. And then lastly, we put the model into use. So once we know that we have an accurate enough of a model, we can actually use it in the real world to help with riverine floods. So this is kind of like an overview. In the next slide, we can actually see, I know it's a bit of a spoiler, but you can see a little bit of the game itself. So here, this is the bit where you search for data in the forest. You can read a little bit more about it and decide to collect it. This is, for example, town gossip.
Oh, you love town gossip, yet?
The students that we tested with, that was their favorite bit. They were like, town gossip. And here they go on to choose which of the ones they want to use. This is where they train the model and test the model. And you can see the neural net in the middle. And here's where they actually put it to use, deploy the model, and actually help the villagers place the market stalls in a way that they won't be harmed from the riverine floods that is coming. So you can see on the bottom left, the map that the model produced. And then they look at it and basically position the market stalls to make sure that the flood will not harm the market.
Amazing. So, I like how the feedback loop is so closed, right? Like you do everything step by step, and you have all of it in one.
Exactly.
Well, so that was a demo of the AI Quest. Now you might be wondering, how does AI Quest then fit into Experience AI? Well, we cover the exact same concepts that Leah just mentioned into Experience AI and into our resources. So in our resources, for example, we have students create their own machine learning model using the AI project lifecycle. We have them collect their own data and test the accuracy of their models. And these are all the exact same concepts that are covered in AI Quest and that Leah just showed us. So it's an opportunity for anyone who's playing with AI Quest to learn more about those concepts through playing the game and really be hands-on with those concepts and really see them through the entire AI project lifecycle. Well, thank you. I'm very honored to have everyone here in the room, and I think all of you. We're very lucky to have all of you, very lucky individuals here with us. And so we actually have a few questions prepared from students who piloted the AI quests, and they have submitted video questions that we will play for all of us, and then we will go around to answer the questions. So I'll go to the next one.
Hi, my name is Chris and I'm from North Liverpool Academy. What was the biggest technical challenge you had to solve when building this model?
So what was the biggest technical challenge you had to solve when building this model?
So thanks, Chris, for this question. I would say that the biggest challenge, and I think this will be the same answer for a lot of problems that we solve with AI, is data. Mostly the challenges are less in building the models, but more in getting the data and working with the data the right way. Specifically in our case, the challenge was that you don't have data globally, and you don't have the same data with the same quality everywhere, but you want to build a model that is global and that achieves as much as possible the same level of quality everywhere. So the question was, how can we make a global model with data only in specific locations? And when we started, the model was actually only able to predict floods in the locations where we had data. And the challenge was to gather enough data and to build the right model so that we were able to extend this to locations that we don't have data. This is called in hydrology ungauged locations, so locations without gauges. And this was one of the biggest challenge in hydrology that hasn't been solved yet before we put AI to solve this problem. So that was kind of the biggest challenge for us.
Oh. Sounds like a big challenge that you solved in the best way possible. That should we go to the next question then?
Hi, my name is Vinny. I'm from North Liverpool Academy. What's the next big step for this technology? Could the same AI be adapted to predict other things like heat waves or landslides?
So I think we kind of touched upon this a little bit in your slides around next steps, but maybe it would be nice to mention it again with how this technology that you're working on could be used for to predict other things.
Definitely. And Vinny, you're right. The same technology can be used to predict other things, specifically other disasters. The team is currently working on other types of floods. Gila mentioned flash floods. And I think that was a comment in a chat about what happened in Texas recently. This is exactly the type of disasters we want to be able to predict. There are other types of disaster, and Gila mentioned droughts, obviously. And you specifically asked about landslides, which usually come together with flash floods. So we hope to be able to predict both flash floods and landslides. And then there are other types of disasters that this technology can predict, such as wildfires and the boundary of a fire. Where is it going to expand? Heat waves is definitely something that is also being worked on, and more. And the technology is very similar. So sometimes the models differ a little bit. The data is a little bit different. As Gila mentioned, for example, drought is a prediction that we make over months and not over days, because it's a different type of problems, and the needs are different. But we use very, very similar technology. And this is why, for example, the team was able to move on from floods to droughts, because it's very similar. And this is how we can make progress fast with a very similar technology.
Yeah, and I assume that you use different sensors for all of these natural occurrences to collect this data. So satellite data is one of them, and then I suppose you have other means of collecting the other kinds of data that you need. And that kind of actually really nicely. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, definitely. I was just about to say that you're definitely right. Some of the data is actually similar. So precipitation is relevant for a lot of the disasters, including floods and droughts. But in some cases, you need additional types of data. So wind is very important for wildfires. The condition of the soil is very important for droughts. So for each disaster, you would need to find sometimes more sources of data. Definitely.
Yeah.
There's one more interesting thing to mention here, which is around the news data set. And what we found is, as we gather a news data set specifically for floods, it can be used and extrapolated into all kinds of other disaster types. And so we're continuously, really almost on a daily basis, finding new opportunities to use some of the really exciting and cutting edge technology.
That is truly very exciting. And it kind of feeds into our next question around data collection, actually. We could play the next one.
Hi, my name is Uva. I'm from North Liverpool Academy. What happens if a sensor breaks or feeds the AI bad data? How do you prevent that from causing a wrong prediction?
Excellent question that feeds right into what we were talking about just now.
Definitely. And Omar, you're right. We're working with real world data, so it's not perfect. And sensors actually break, like I mentioned before, and sometimes they don't break, but they give us bad data that we need to see if we can remove. So we have different ways to automatically remove or correct data. If we see, for example, values that are outliers, that are or too big or too small and not what we expect, so we can correct them. If we see patches of data that don't match what we had before, like I showed. So there is a few use cases that we know how to fix automatically. Sometimes we even look at the data ourselves manually, especially when we have data in locations that are more important to us because we have less data there. So we want to make sure that the data we have there is high quality, especially in Africa. So we would look at this data a little bit more closely. But I will also say that one advantage of AI models is that they're able to cope with some level of issues in the data and noise, what we call noise in the data. So the model itself is able to understand that the data is not perfect, and if something doesn't seem well, then the model will be able to kind of ignore this on its own. But obviously, you want to reduce as much as possible the noise that you put in the data to make it easier for your model to make it better.
Yeah, exactly. Because at the end of the day, you would want models with high accuracy whose predictions are actually helpful for those communities that you are trying to help.
Definitely.
Okay, we have one final question from a student, Hannah, if we can play that as well.
I'm Hannah from North Liverpool Academy. How do you ensure the model is fair and doesn't prioritize protecting one area over another?
Fairness and fairness is another very big topic, I suppose. So I'd love for you to take this one as well.
Definitely. So Hannah, that's a great question, especially in our case where, as I mentioned, we have a lot of data in certain areas and less data in other areas. So there is no theoretical way to make sure that you're not introducing biases. You have to check, and this is what we do. So after we train a model, we do some validations per continent, per climate, per country to make sure that adding data in some regions, usually in the global north, is not putting the global south at a disadvantage and introducing biases and actually leading us to lower performance in the global south. So this is how we kind of check that the validation that I showed before, we can do this per country, per continent, per climate to make sure that we're keeping the fairness all around. And what we found actually is the more data you have, even if it's not in the same locations, the better the model is. So we didn't see this phenomenon, which can happen, but in our case, the more data we added, no matter where it is, it improves the model overall. Obviously, adding data in locations where the data is scarce and you don't have a lot of data makes more impact, but all data is good data. This is what we found, but this is what we check. And you're right, we check this for every new model that we have to make sure that we didn't introduce these biases.
Yeah, I assume also that some areas in the world, there aren't that many data collection centers, so there might not be as many sensors around, and so you might end up with less data in these areas, and that's why it's so important to think about fairness in that instance.
Exactly. And that's actually one of the key powers of AI, right? Like it's able to extrapolate. So even in places where we don't have data, we can actually get relatively good information.
And this is also where news actually helps us because you do have news everywhere. Obviously, there is still biases for news because you have more articles in developed countries than in developing countries. But still, that adds data in areas where we don't have a lot of data. and it's helping with the biases a little bit.
Incredible. So using AI to help you with developing new AI technologies.
Exactly.
Amazing. All right, I'm gonna ask Leah to come back on stage to show us and tell us a little bit more about what is coming next in terms of AI Quest, because we heard about all the amazing research that informed the first AI Quest, and I'm pretty sure that you have more teams globally who are working on other problems. You're muted. I will.
Thank you, Rihanna. Exactly, you're totally right. So our next quest, and this is really a spoiler because this is not out yet, so this is between you and I. The next quest is around blindness prevention. And as in any of our quests, it follows the same logic and the same life cycle, but it actually is a bit different. First of all, it's not a climate subject. In this case, it's a health subject, so it's a different topic and maybe interesting more for different students or less for different students, so it's great to have that diversity. Also, we focus on a few kind of specific things that may happen with AI, and I'll touch upon that in a second. So first of all, let's kind of I'll give you a glimpse of the life cycle. So again, we first understand the problem, then we prepare the data. In this case, we go into a data privacy task where the students need to find any anonymous data that shouldn't be there and actually disapprove it and not use it in the model, which is actually something that we do in the real research behind this blindness prevention quest. Then they take all of the data that they collected and cleaned, and they train and test the model with it. So they basically put in all of those eye scans that they collected into the input. They see how it scans it and kind of translates it into a metrics of numbers that's fed into the neural net. And at the end, you see an output and you see the model kind of training through these labeled scans. And then they go out to field testing. That's again, something that we didn't have in floods, because here we're talking about a health topic. And with health, we're being extra cautious. So it's not just that we're testing it in the lab, we're also testing it in the field with real patients. And what's going to happen here, and again, this is between us, what's going to happen here is that students are going to find out that actually they were missing some data. So I'm not going to tell you exactly what, but their data wasn't diverse enough. And so they go on and collect more data, and they collect diverse data from other parts of the planet. And then they go back to training the model, testing the model. In this task, they also need to label the data, because the first set that they got was already labeled. This one isn't. And then again, they deploy it like we did in flood forecasting, and see the real impact that it has in the world. At the end of each quest, flood forecasting and this quest too, we feature a real world kind of video from the real researchers behind the research, kind of telling us a little bit more about what this was based on. Same as you heard today from Gila and Debbie, but just kind of a shorter, snackable video. And that's it.
So inspiring. I cannot wait to see all these other AI quests come out, and I'll be playing them, and I'll be looking at all the AI concepts that are covered in there. But I think it's such an incredible opportunity to make all of these concepts so accessible through a game-based experience. And we're kind of talking about really big topics here, right? Like Gila and Debbie just told us about all the flood forecasting research, and that's very complicated research that you need to be very experienced in to understand. For some reason, you've been able to make it so accessible, and in these, chunks that are so easily understandable, and we can all play them and all feel like we learned something at the end of each game. So I truly cannot wait for the other quests to come out. And when they do, we'll have another conversation like this as well. I would like to thank you all for being here, basically, and for joining me and for talking about why it's so important to equip young people with the skills to look at AI, to look at the AI technologies around them, but also to have the language through which to talk about everything that is happening around them, right? So around bias and fairness and data collection, and also having the skills to create their own machine learning and AI project. So to bring it all back, you're all part of a global community of young people who are gaining AI literacy skills and who are learning to understand, who are learning to question and create with the AI technologies around them. And AI Quest is really a chance for you to engage with real-world research that Debbie and Gila just talked about, that is solving some of the world's biggest problems around flood forecasting. And like Leah just mentioned, there's also other quests in the pipeline that look at other types of research that is also solving very big problems in the world. And at the end of the day, no matter what career you choose, AI literacy and having AI literacy skills will mean that you can meaningfully navigate an AI-powered world. And we really hope that you develop those skills responsibly, ethically, and in a way that suits you the most. And we hope that you will use the resources and the games that we were showing today to help you in the quest to develop those skills. So thank you all for joining us. Leah, thank you for being a wonderful co-host with me today and for creating AI Quest and for being a champion for AI literacy skills for young people all over the world. Thank you to our guests, Gila and Debbie, who made your research so accessible and so understandable, and that must have taken hard work. So thank you so much for taking the time to being here today, late in the evening for you as well, for sharing your impactful research that is helping communities all over the world. If you wanted to look at the resources that we have been talking about today, so the AI Quest and the Experience AI resources, there is a short link over there, so rpf.io/Experience AI-resources, and you can find all the resources that we were talking about today. At the moment, it's available in the English version, but if you wanted to get in touch and if you had more questions that we couldn't answer today, then you're more than welcome to get in touch using the email that is over there, so aiprojects@raspberrypi.org, and we will get back to you. I'm sure there will be more webinars in the pipeline as more AI quests get developed, so keep an eye on our socials to find out the next dates. Thank you all so much. Yes, wonderful being here with all of you, and I hope to see you all very soon.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.